Tennessee's rise under head coach Josh Heupel has been amazing to watch after struggling through constant rebuilds before his arrival. Now, Tennessee controls their own destiny when it comes to the SEC title game and the college football playoffs. Win out the rest of the regular season, and they are basically a lock for both. But with the major matchup against Georgia this weekend, which looks to be a college football playoff elimination game, I thought it would never be a more perfect time to look back at the insane 3.5 years under Heupel, which has led to them becoming an SEC power for years to come. Something that seemed crazy to say back in 2020. This is the rise of Tennessee football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who you think wins the national title this year in the comment section below. When Josh Heupel took over as head coach, the program was sort of a mess coming off the Jeremy Pruitt era, with NCAA violations occurring under Pruitt. The university's internal investigation unearthed what multiple people with knowledge of the situation have told The Athletic are a dozen of Level 1 and Level 2 violations. Heupel was coming off a successful stint at UCF, where he took over for Scott Frost and went 28-8 over 3 seasons, and appeared in the Fiesta Bowl against a Joe Burrow-led LSU team. While UCF would not see their record improve from year 1 to year 3, Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White believed that he could help turn the Volunteers football program into a national title contender after working with Heupel at UCF. White spoke at the opening press conference saying, "I've never worked at a big brand place until now, and I actually like the fact that the brand needs to be polished a little bit. It needs to be elevated to where it was not that long ago in the college athletic space. If everything was humming here and going great, I wouldn't be standing here. It wouldn't be an attractive proposition for me." Heupel knew not only did he have to rebuild the Volunteers program in a brutal SEC, but also had the chance to have one hand tied behind his back during the early part of his regime due to Pruitt's staff decisions. Heupel told the media, "I had a very frank conversation with every person in leadership about what had transpired, what their knowledge is, what they believe is going to transpire as far as penalties, and the reason I'm standing here today is I believe in a very, very bright future for Tennessee football. I believe that there's a minor speed bump that we're going to get through, but the kids that are in our program right now and the kids that are going to be recruited are all going to have the opportunity to go play and chase championships." Tennessee was coming off a 3-7 season in 2020 and had their 4th failed rebuild since Dickey and Fulmer were leading the program. Dickey explained, "You're playing Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, and Missouri, and Arkansas, and people all have the same thing in mind. They want to win championships. You have to find some way to do it at your place, and the odds of doing it pretty regularly like Alabama is pretty low." The Heupel hire was graded as a C by 24/7 Sports, with Dennis Dodd saying, "When Heupel was announced, it was largely a shoulder shrug. Not terrible, not great. Other more accomplished candidates were no doubt scared away by the NCAA investigation. Sure, he's the offensive-friendly guy that the AD Danny White wanted, but in the end, this seemed like a fallback when the likes of Tony Elliott decided to stay put. Heupel's record at UCF declined each season. There were rumblings about how recruiting suffered. An offensive wizard who has a golden touch with quarterbacks will have to learn it in a hurry how to recruit elite defensive tackles for Tennessee to contend once again in the SEC. Dodd gave Auburn's Brian Harsin an A-, Clark Lee and Vanderbilt a B, and Shane Beamer in South Carolina a C-. UCF got an A+ grade for hiring former Auburn head coach Gus Malzahn to replace Heupel. Let's just say that did not age well, especially when you look at the title of the video. During Heupel's first recruiting class, the Volunteers brought in some key playmakers via the transfer portal. They brought in 2 quarterbacks with starting quarterback experience, in Virginia Tech's quarterback Hendon Hooker and Michigan's quarterback Joe Milton. Hendon Hooker would win the starting quarterback job after Joe Milton was benched during the Pittsburgh loss and impressed, throwing for 2,945 yards, 31 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, while also rushing for 616 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. They lost close games to Pittsburgh, who were blown out by Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, but almost upset Ole Miss, who were all ranked within the top 13 of the rankings when they played them. Tennessee had an explosive offense, averaging 39.3 points per game, which ranked top 10 in the nation, but the defense also gave up a ton of points, finishing in the bottom third of the college football. They finished year 1 under Heupel going 7-6, losing to Purdue in overtime in their bowl game. It was their best season since 2019, a season where they would have all their wins vacated, and best season since 2016 under Butch Jones, if you take away that vacated 2019 season. They were building and heading into the 2022 season, and there were questions on whether Joe Milton could beat Hendon Hooker out for the starting quarterback job, due to winning the job before the 2021 season and due to the tools he had compared to Hooker. Hooker would hold on to the starting job and played even better, throwing for 3,135 yards, 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while also rushing for 430 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground, while Milton finished with 971 yards and 10 touchdowns after Hooker tore his ACL in their loss to South Carolina. They would start the season off 8-0, including beating Alabama in a magical game, one of, if not the greatest games of the 2022 season. I still remember watching the game from a hotel room, kicking myself after I couldn't make it when Scott Fisher invited me to go with him. One of my biggest regrets, because I was in the middle of a move. They would rebound from their loss to Georgia, beating Missouri 66-24, or being shocked by South Carolina losing 63-38 when Hooker went down with an injury. Hooker was in the Heisman conversation at the time, and they would finish the year beating both Vanderbilt and Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Tennessee finished the year leading the nation in points per game, averaging 46.1 points per game, and their defense improved by nearly 10 points when compared to year 1 under Heupel, as they finished just outside the top third of all of college football. Heading into the 2023 season, there was a lot of excitement surrounding Tennessee football, now led by quarterback Joe Milton, and they also brought in top-rated quarterback Nico Iamaleava after a major NIL deal. Heupel was known for developing quarterbacks and was expected to help Milton become a top quarterback for the 2024 NFL Draft. There was a lot of hype around the team. Tennessee started off the season looking like they were picking up right where they left it off in 2022, putting up 79 points in their first 2 games, before falling to Florida in the Swamp, where they only put up 16 points. They rebounded by putting up 86 combined points in their wins over UTSA and South Carolina before surviving a 20-13 game against Texas A&M to enter their game against Alabama at 5-1 and college football playoff hope still alive. While it looked like they were going to run away with the game up 20-7 at half in Tuscaloosa, the Crimson Tide would explode in the second half, scoring 27 points and shutting out the Volunteers to win 34-20 and basically eliminating them from the college football playoff conversation, sitting at 5-2. It would rebound with a close win over Kentucky and a blowout win over UConn, but would be destroyed by both Missouri and Georgia the next 2 weeks. Following the Missouri loss, A to Z sports writer Zach Reagan wrote, "Tennessee was outclassed in every way on Saturday. Missouri's play calling was better. They blocked better, their defense played more inspired, and their offensive players simply looked like they wanted more. Unfortunately, these types of games are becoming common under Heupel. As good as the program has been at the time under Heupel, and make no mistake, he's the right guy to lead Tennessee, there are way too many stinkers for this program to be a championship contender. They would blow out both Vanderbilt and Iowa in their bowl game to finish the year 9-4, which was still one of the best seasons in the past decade, but not where fans thought they would be heading into the season. Without offense coordinator Alex Golesh, who is now the head coach at USF, they only averaged 31.8 points per game, although they had their best defensive performance statistically under Heupel, only allowing 20.3 points per game, finishing top 25 in the nation. Heading into year 4 under Heupel, led by quarterback Nico Iamaleava and running back Dylan Sampson, fans hoped that Tennessee could compete for a spot in the new 12-team college football playoff. Phil Steele projected them to finish tied for 5th in the SEC with Missouri, Oklahoma, and LSU, as they only returned 11 starters overall. Heupel's resilience and willingness to evolve on offense has helped him create a near-perfect system at UCF and Tennessee. The Tennessee players have adapted his chip-on-the-shoulder mentality. That's a big reason we've seen so much improvement on both sides of the ball since 2021. Tennessee exploded onto the scene this year with 191 points through their first 3 games, averaging an insane 63.7 points per game in wins over Chattanooga, NC State, and Kent State, only allowing 4.3 points per game on defense. Heupel got revenge over Oklahoma with a 25-15 win in Norman, before being shocked by Arkansas and Fayetteville 19-14 to fall to 4-1. They had a scare at home against Florida, winning 23-17 in overtime as their offense began to sputter. It was their first time beating Florida twice in 3 years since 2001 to 2004, when they won 3 straight, and first time winning 2 straight at home since 1990 to 1992. It set up a major matchup against Alabama once again, a game they would win 24-17. Throughout October, Nico struggled to hit the deep ball as the offense looked like it had lost its mojo compared to the first 3 games of the season, but the defense helped keep them in games. They beat Kentucky 28-18, and most recently Mississippi State 33-14 this past weekend, and are sitting at 8-1 heading into a major matchup against Georgia, who's coming off a blowout loss to Ole Miss this past weekend. Win this weekend, and they are in the driver's seat to compete in the SEC title game, with games against UTEP and a dangerous Vanderbilt team still remaining. They currently have the 15th best scoring offense in the nation, averaging 37.6 points per game, led by redshirt freshman Nico Iamaleava, who has thrown for 1,879 yards, 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while Sampson has rushed for 1,129 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground, being one of the nation's best running backs, but going under the radar. While Nico was knocked out of the Mississippi State game due to an injury, he's expected to play this weekend, as he was held out of the second half with precaution, finishing that game completing 8 of his 13 passes for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns and seemingly getting his deep ball back. Their defense is also top 5 in points allowed per game at 12.6, although their rush defense has struggled over the last few weeks, after it was its bread and butter all season long. Off the field, Heupel has continued to recruit at a high level, setting the Volunteers up for a lot of future success. Tennessee has become a top destination for recruits, the vibe in Knoxville has been immaculate, the stadium has undergone much needed renovations, and the game day experience has improved. Heupel has turned Tennessee around from being a disaster looking back at the good old days to competing for the SEC title and possible national title in only 3.5 years, and has been impressive to watch as he is sitting at 35-13 right now with his record. What do you think? How does Tennessee finish here? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.